Well, that was a whole lot of nothing, wasn't it? Which is unfortunate because it was kind of hopeful for a new way of doing things in Parliament, a more nuanced approach, slightly less of a circus than usual, but they couldn't agree on anything. It was nice to see Parliament reassert itself as the ultimate arbiter in British politics, but then they completely failed to do anything. Why? The usual problem, party politics, tribalistic loyalties and so on, but it did indicate a few interesting things. That if May's deal was tempered or softened a bit more, then people might support it. That would be good. That would be a way forward. So if we retained freedom of movement, the whole European customs zone, all the rest of it, so there is consensus there is room there to bring the opposition on board for a softer Brexit. It's a less than ideal solution, still, all forms of Brexit are, but it would be nice to retain a lot of the rights and freedoms and so on that we've been granted by European citizenship, rather than having them be arbitrarily taken away by a white working class tantrum. Yeah, that would be nice. And I say this as someone who, despite the plummy accent, has been poor, has been in these situations, but even so, it does seem that this Brexit spasm, has been taken from a position that is misinformed, disinformed, ignorant, not necessarily through any fault of their own. Yeah, and we're trying to claw back to some kind of reasonable position from that. A lot of it was driven by resentment towards Westminster, which is understandable, as this farce further demonstrates. But then it's attacking the wrong people. But I guess if you understand that in the context of the fact that Europe has been blamed for all our ills for decades, then it makes a bit more sense. But there was some kind of consensus towards a softer version of Brexit. And you would lose the ERG, the DUP, and a whole bunch of others, but you might gain a lot more support from the Tiggers, the Liberal Democrats, and Labour for a softer version of Brexit. The other indication was something that has been suggested before, and this would be my favoured solution to the issue, which is that there was quite a lot of support for a second confirmatory vote. Now, this has a lot of advantages if you're a parliamentarian. It means you can defer the decision to the British people. We can get an actual proper, legally binding, legally obtained mandate in a situation where people have the actual facts and understand what is happening and is going to happen better than they did in 2016. So if it went to May's deal with a confirmatory vote, then I think the opposition would also be willing to get on board, and a lot of Remainers would be happy with that, get a second crack of the whip at the vote. Obviously we think we would win, but I think if it went against us again, and Farage seems to think he could win a second vote with a larger margin, then I think we would, most of us, grudgingly accept and immediately start campaigning to rejoin. But that's the situation. So if May comes back with her deal with an offer of a confirmatory vote by the public, then I think we can see something happening there, especially if that would coincide with her stepping down and a general election. You don't have to have a general election when a leader steps down, but just the sheer paralysis in government, the cartoonish nonsense going on in the Conservative Party and in the Labour Party, I think makes a strong case for a general election, and that's Labour's preferred option. So that would be another way to swing a few more people behind it, I guess. And she has offered her resignation, but that didn't do the job. Her vote is still one of the least popular options, but if you combined it with something else, then maybe it will go through. Now, there may be a second set of these votes, with less options, perhaps, with people being able to consider, having had feedback from their constituents and so on. So I strongly suggest, whichever side of the argument you're on, write to your MP, tell them what you think, tell them what you want, tell them what you like, tell them what you think would appear to be a way forward in all this, and I guess we'll see. But at the moment, May's deal isn't coming back without substantial change. A confirmatory vote would do that as well. There are no ideal solutions here, but for me, I think a second vote should be something that everybody is campaigning for. If we Brexit on the basis of that previous referendum, people like me are never going to see that as legitimate because of all the illegality, the bullshit, the lies, the disinformation from the press, from the Murdoch press, all the rest of it. We're never ever going to see that as valid, and we're never ever going to forgive anybody on the other side. If you have a second vote with a fully informed populace, at least in theory, for May's deal versus Remain with another referendum, then I think we would go along with whatever happened there, however grudgingly. And it would at least give a genuine mandate, assuming, of course, it was binding and run fully legally this time around. But as with anything, this is just all up in the air. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. So many unusual, weird, strange things have happened that there's just no telling. And probably won't find out till next week now what the next step, the next stage is. And remember, this is only the beginning. If we Brexit, there will be a decade plus of negotiations and so on, in which we will be in a much weaker and more desperate position, and without a lot of the protections as workers, as individuals, that we enjoy from the EU. Now, I've got people all up in my mentions about all of this, especially in the wake of Article 13, Article 11, Article 17. The whole internet control / censorship thing. I did a video on it yesterday. It's not as bad as people say, but they want to just blame the EU for that rather than the moneyed interests. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is all good. Nothing is all bad, apart from bacon. Swings and roundabouts. I mean, all governments do bad things. The question is whether they're representative or not, really, of their people's views. Parliament isn't. The EU is, to a much greater extent, because of proportional representation. And then I've got another wing of angry Brexiters in my mentions, but you just scratch the surface, and there's a white genocide conspiracy loon. Now, if you're not racist, if you're not xenophobic, if your worry is not immigration of brown people, which largely has nothing to do with the EU and will increase after Brexit in any case, I think you need to do some work to distance yourself from these people and to present reasons why you support Brexit that aren't bullshit. I've taken to asking now, every time someone gets into this with me, why did you vote for Brexit? And betting them that it's either parochial or misinformed, or that they won't tell me. And by and large, none of them will tell me why they voted for it, except the really out-and-out outspoken racists. So if you've got a genuine reason that stands to scrutiny, by all means let me know what it is. It would be a lovely novelty. Zang. Old Fat Punks is part caper, part comedy, part nostalgia and part commentary. It follows three aging punks as they build themselves up for one big, nihilistic last hurrah. You can buy Old Fat Punks at Amazon, Drive-Thru Fiction or Lulu.com. Follow the links below or search on those sites.